We will start like in 1 minute. Welcome back from the workshops and for lunch. Welcome. So if you take your seats and we will slowly continue with our final panel before our final remarks. And because after 2 days we are already sort of among friends and we know each other very well, so I will be just by introducing that there is Tom and Roope and Kirsi and Tuija and Timo. So now you know everybody. So Tom, it's now your turn. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Petra. So the last panel of the conference, sometimes the hardest to keep people focused. So what we will be doing here is trying to keep it as interactive as possible. So everyone will be having short comments, short input, and I will also be coming to you, participants, to get your ideas on what we should do to move forward. So I will be coming out into the crowd for ideas, questions, comments, and so forth. So stay alert for this panel. We've discussed a lot about social innovation. We've discussed its definition. We've discussed what legal frameworks can help providers be innovative. We've looked into what service providers can do themselves to drive innovation in their network. Now the big question is, what next? Often with conferences, you end up in situations where you have a nice conference, you discuss, chit chat, and then nothing happens. That's not what we want to do at EASPD. What we want to do is to make sure that in the future, we help to drive innovation through service providers across Europe. So effectively, we will be launching sometime next year an EASPD declaration on social innovation, which will have a definition of social innovation, and it will also showcase what EASPD can do to help you do this innovation, because we won't be doing the innovation, it will be you, and so we want to make sure that we can help you in doing that job with the different tools that we have today. So this panel will be basically focusing on that, shaping EASPD's agenda on social innovation, but ultimately not to shape our agenda, but to shape your agenda and to help you to innovate moving forward. So we have a panelist also to help sort of initiate the discussion. But I would also then come to you with some comments, some questions, and so forth afterwards. Maybe we can go through the participants who can maybe introduce themselves to everyone, because first names is good, but also what they do in their organizations is also very helpful. So maybe, and I hope not to mispronounce names. Finnish names are not easy always, so please correct me if I get that wrong. So maybe first, Roope, can you present yourself briefly?
Hello, I'm Roope Mokka. Absolutely thrilled to be here. I'm the founder of Demos Helsinki. We're some 60 people, mostly based here in Helsinki, but operate globally. I think last year we had a project in 30 different countries. Right now, this autumn, we've started something quite unique around the new logic of care. Which looks at care as a society-wide phenomenon, not something that is restricted into a particular sector. And many of our panelists and people in the audience are part of the 15-strong coalition that is putting these things forward. Thanks, thrilled to be here.
Thank you very much, Roope. Kirsi?
Hi all, again. I'm Kirsi Konola from KVPS. You already know something about KVPS by now. At least you have seen a lot of our staff around here helping you and so on. But just a few words. We are a national provider for services for people with intellectual disabilities. Big provider focusing on that group founded by families in the 90s. That's it.
Thank you, Kirsi. Tuija?
Hello, my name is Tuija Åstedt, and it's nice to see you all from this direction. I'm coming from Rinnekoti, which belongs to the Deaconess Foundation group. And we provide a wide range of social and health services around Finland. What I'm responsible for the operations that we run in Helsinki area.
Fantastic. Timo?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Timo Heiskala. I'm the CEO of Autism Foundation Finland. So great to see so many people here, and almost all are wake up, so it's quite good. So we are a national service provider for people in the autism spectrum. We have around 1,200 clients in 23 locations, and our staff is now around 500. And we are growing quite fast also. So happy to be here. And happy to be also in the new logic of care with Roope and other organizations. So nice to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Timo. And last but not least, Jim?
Good afternoon again. I'm Jim Crowe, President of EASPD, and it's wonderful to be sharing a platform for such active and vibrant, progressive organizations. Thank you.
Great. Let's get started then. So a bit first about the EASPD declaration. So these are just the starting point of the discussions, and this conference, of course, is taking it to a next step, and there will be a procedure afterwards to, let's say, finalize it. So we want to finish it by approximately February next year, if we can. 3 main objectives: a cross-European approach to social innovation, not too strict that it can limit creativity on the ground, but still ambitious enough so that it can sort of show a sense of direction to services that you provide. We want to also operationalize social innovation for EASPD. So what does it mean? How can we make sure that everything that we do at EASPD is in line with this definition of social innovation and helps you to make a difference? We do it in some ways in an ad hoc way right now. We do, we're not starting from scratch, but are we sufficiently looking into making sure that everything we do is in line with helping you make this change? And then, of course, last but not least, it's to help you do the innovation that you want to do too. Bit of context, we discussed it, the UN Convention is out there. There's a lot of new clarifications and guidelines around the UN Convention, which helps, but in some ways they're also extremely ambitious. And what is difficult right now is to know how to get there, how to implement the quite, I'd say, positively radical statements that are in these new clarifications from the UN Convention. And then, of course, there's a link to EASPD strategy. We want to implement the UN Convention. It means we need to move forward because we need to change what we do and transition. So that's a bit the context. Basically, we need to bridge the gap between where we are now and the UN Convention. To do that, we need social innovation. There's nothing new there. We started with this definition at the conference proposed by researchers. This is not EASPD's definition. This is the definition proposed by the researchers after consulting with us to a little extent, of course, but also with the United Nations and with DPOs. So this is very much, let's say, driven by the researchers as a starting point for the discussions. And what we want to discuss today is, does this definition help you? Is it too much in the air? Is it too theoretical? Is it too practical? Or how can we make sure that it really helps drive change on the ground? There are 3 main elements to it. The first is, I think, quite general as a whole. Of course, it's effectively about new groundbreaking ideas and practices responding to individual wishes. That's reasonably straightforward. I don't think anything too controversial there. Then we're moving into the second paragraph, which is around developing person-centered solutions. We've discussed that a lot today. It's, of course, about human rights. It's especially about respecting voice, choice, and control for people with disabilities, all people with disabilities. And then, of course, that links to promoting independent living and participation in all areas of life. Each of these areas, it makes sense to everyone. That's great, right? But is that exactly what we're doing right now, all of us? Some of us are going in that direction, and hopefully this can really showcase that this is a clear direction that we need to take. But again, is this definition a little bit ahead of times, or is it the right balance, and can it help you to make a difference? with yourself, but also at national level with your authorities and so forth. And then there's the third element, which is effectively about co-production. It's about making sure that people with disabilities are at the center, not only at the center of services, but that they're driving the services moving forward too, not just in development, but at all stages of the initiative. A big part also about innovation is about transforming the social relationships that we have and empowering people with disabilities. And the relationships area is especially important because services, we're no longer working within ourselves. We have to reach out to other stakeholders too, and that's a big part of innovation. So that's the proposed definition. What we want to know is this just a load of blah, 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 or I'm looking at some of you agree. Good, I want to hear your voice on that. Or is it sort of in some ways useful because it doesn't exist already and so forth. So really getting your views on that is great. But let's start maybe with some words from Roope. So you are a futurist. I've heard a lot about that today. And I have a question for you. This definition is in some ways quite futuristic. We're on the path to there, but have we fully implemented it? Not really. But how can we bridge the gap between the future, this, and developing concrete initiatives on the ground?
I have to say that I like the definition, but I would like to raise the bar a bit, because if you look into the future of support, care, and so forth, they are becoming such a central part to our society that we need some kind of fundamental redistribution of responsibilities. And this doesn't really touch the responsibilities part, in my opinion. But then again, if you look at history of social innovation, things such as welfare state, taxes, military service, these are all social innovations that fundamentally distribute and redistribute responsibilities. And I think if we just are in the sort of solution space and don't ask that, how do we actually get other professions, other part of society to be part of this, I think we are fighting a bit of a losing battle,
so
to be honest.
You think this is a little bit too self-centered in some way?
Yeah, I would like to see there are collaborations and partnerships, but I'd like to go a bit further and say accountabilities and responsibilities. Yeah. Basically the question that how could we get the decision makers that are now currently the group of people that have least experience in care and support work to take responsibility of that. Now you can kind of buy yourself free of those responsibilities, and many people do. And I think the time for change is going to happen in that. There's no way we can have like a professional capacity, and no matter how innovative we are, to take care of everyone who needs to be taken care of.
Can I provoke you a little?
Please.
Since when have public authorities driven innovation anywhere? Sorry, this was unplanned, by the way.
I think it has happened for a long time, because maybe they haven't driven innovation, but kind of copied and scaled up innovation. Like the history of welfare state was one of expansion until it stopped expanding, and there was a lot of innovation there. But now it's kind of efficiency innovation, a bit solutionist innovation has been maybe depends on the country, but last decades anyway.
Fair enough.
So if you're not in a kind of growth paradigm, expansion paradigm, it's difficult to innovate, of course.
Yeah. Great. Now I'm looking at you. I can see everyone avoiding my eyes, but you're going to be the people doing the innovation. I'm not surprised. Bob, you want to come in? So I will come to you, Bob. And if we can make sure that we keep our interventions, max 1 minute, because it's really trying to be dynamic and so forth. So I'm going to run over to you, Bob.
This is 20 seconds. The question is, what is government for? And I think, from my perspective, we're not going to change anything unless government is about producing a good society. But certainly in the UK, government is about managing public resources, end of story.
That's a record for you, Bob, 20 seconds.
Short. I just want to remind you, Thomas, that the whole process of normalization in Scandinavian countries has been put forward by people from the government, like Bank Mikkelsen and other people. They were legislators and Democrats in the municipal and government structures?
Thank you for that, Hans. I will go a bit to the other side. Anyone have any ideas? Oh, first here, and then you, Everton, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm engaged into social innovation for maybe 15 years now, and I'm really wondering if there's not a contradiction between working towards an inclusive society and redefining a specialized way of doing social innovation for disability. I'm just wondering if there's not something like creating something special and trying to be like inclusive. So.
Absolutely, and maybe Roope, you can come back to that just afterwards.
Thank you.
I think my comment comes close to what you try to say. To me, the definition is very much related to inclusion, creating an inclusive society. And I think from our experience in working with people with disabilities, we have sufficient also inspiration to challenge how relationships work in society. So maybe we should incorporate that wider perspective on how do we want society to be, and human relationships and norms to be, what is normal, et cetera, et cetera. And I think if we only work on ourselves and the people with support and do not address, let's say, or criticize how society works, then maybe we just missed the point. And I think it comes close to what you try to say. We do not really change anything.
Okay, one last comment, and then I will come back to the panel.
I think stuff like normalization and a lot of the social innovation we're talking about are technologies. They're not social change. Social change usually comes from people fighting for something, and the people that we're fighting for today aren't here, which I think says a lot. I think that most good things people fight for, votes, independent living was a big fight in America from people, and we're all just doing nice things for people who aren't here. And I haven't brought anybody with us, which is shocking, but I think there's something in that.
Absolutely, I think that's something for us to work on moving forward. Now I'm going to run. This is a bit of a workout on Friday. You have a mic.
I have a microphone. Or do you want to go first?
Maybe I could say something, because your remark was excellent, I think, and also what Evertian was saying, and I think the whole idea, at least when I'm coming back to the work we are doing together with Roope, with this new logic of care, I think it's very much in the essence of what you are saying, that in a way our traditional services are failing is a bit too strong, but you know what I mean when I say failing, to create inclusion and to promote it. We have had, in a way, the structures we have, it doesn't, when we look at the education, for example, or whatever, it doesn't go further in a way. And at the same time, we know all over Europe, we are lack of resources, we are lack of people who would do it, and so on. So the essence of what we are thinking in this project is very much, I think, what you are saying, that we have to kind of think about the logic of care a little bit in a new way, which comes, I think, close to the definition of social innovations, because the logic we have had so far, we had very good outcomes, very, very good. We are able to support people to live a fulfilling life and so on. But when we look at, are they really full citizens of our societies and so on, equality and things like that, I think there is still a lot to do, and there where it comes there. So I don't see that they are in contradiction in a way, but I think they are supporting each other.
And maybe I can add a kind of a historical perspective to that. As I'm a futurist, I like the history a lot. Because you have to understand history in a new way to understand future in a new way, because otherwise, well, you just go into the same direction. But I think what happened was that we first had this idea of universalism, that this is like something for everyone, and then there was a lot of services that were kind of for everyone. And then at certain point, the idea that, okay, now we need to just make sure that everyone has equal access to those, created the ideas of special groups and more focus to them. But maybe there's like a new wave of universalism coming now, which is about kind of creating these new institutions, new structures that are for everyone. And of course, there's always someone asks that, okay, so where do the resources come from? So maybe they are not professional resources, but something else, or maybe they are not like sectoral resources. I've like entertained myself asking that what is the bus driver's relationship or responsibility to care, for example, and so forth, or like a business leader's responsibility to care.
Great. Tuija, you want to come in?
Yeah, just one note to this discussion. I think this is something, because we in the Nordic countries, we are famous for our welfare state. And I think it shapes that model also very drastically when we go to this direction, which Kirsi and Roope are now talking about.
Timo?
Yes, we had a nice discussion with Roope actually about responsibilities, and I think the whole idea of society needs some kind of paradigm shift. So we have to think differently, and we really have to think differently. Everybody's saying, let's think differently. Are we really doing that? Do we have the courage to change the way we are operating and arranging the services, for example?
So maybe it's about, you have the age-old thing that don't ask what society can do for you, but ask what you can do for society. As a sector, you maybe could ask the reverse. Don't ask what you can do for the society, but what the society can and should do for you.
Great. Jim?
We're going into an area of debate which is really very interesting, isn't it? And I think it's, I was oscillating between whether to say something optimistic or pessimistic, as I heard the contributions from colleagues and from the floor. So I'll start with something pessimistic, and perhaps, given there's only a few of us and nobody's outside of the room listening in, so I wouldn't say this normally on a public platform, but yeah, I've seen many examples of effective leadership and achieving success. But often, and bringing innovation, but often that has been despite local authorities and despite lack of funding. As I say, I wouldn't strike that tone outside of this intimate gathering here, but we have to just try and just work around these barriers. But they do seem to be very fundamental about power, about control. About bureaucracies preserving their own being and maintaining their power. We are in charge. We'll tell you what you spend your money on. But then, to be optimistic, some of the best initiatives I've seen have been community-founded, community-based, are about true inclusion and don't cost tons and tons of money. But that doesn't. I don't think those comments are not progressing the debate this afternoon, I'm afraid, at the moment.
But we're here for the big discussions right now.
Yes.
The more practical elements will come a bit later.
Can I touch upon the community-based thing, because that's a huge thing, and it has to do with social innovation. And I think social innovation is particular in that sense that, unlike technological innovation, it's very difficult to take from one place to another. So you have like these Burzog models and all kinds of community-based, place-specific things that have been very difficult to implement elsewhere. That's just a kind of a notice that there is something in social innovation which is very context specific. So in that sense, and maybe this doesn't touch upon on the issue of kind of scalability, transformability, that type of thing, that how can it grow outside that one particular organization or community that has made the innovation.
Indeed, and that's the importance of the local context is something which for EASPD has always been a strength in some way because of the diversity, but also a challenge because as a European organization, what can you do to to really support that diversity on the ground? We'll maybe come to that later. Jim first, and then Pep wants to come in.
Again, it's a rather negative thought, and I wouldn't be saying this publicly.
Please, Jim. No.
But
not a third time.
Are we sometimes too lazy? You know. Do we do the easier thing? Genuine inclusion or putting the person at the center of the service and asking them what they want? Is that just a bit too hard for us sometimes? Do we think we're after a bigger goal, which is to bring in change and bring in what we think is a better service? But sometimes do we actually think that the best way to do that is to cut through the consultation, cut through the putting the person at the center and working with them and building up what they want?
That's not that negative, Jim.
Okay.
Not in my mind. Not on a Friday, at least. Pep.
Thank you. And connecting many things that has been said before, I missed something about the unequal basis than others. In the whole definition, at the end, the goal is not specialized processes to be included in a special, but the result is in equal basis, and the equality is not in the definition, and there is a lot of words. That means maybe we can include one or substitute some other to focus on that at the end, in equal basis with the other people in the community, in everything that we participate. Is that?
That's great because it's. I was speaking to the representative from the UN earlier, and she was also telling me the same earlier. Okay, this is great, but we've become even more theoretical in some ways. Anyone who wants to bring it down a little, making it a little bit more practical for a service provider to sort of know where to go, which direction to go? Because I mean, this sounds great, and it's important discussions, but is this going to really help drive innovation in our sector, having these theoretical discussions? Does anyone have any idea on how to make it grounded?
Somebody in Australia had a brilliant question, which was, how can we be most helpful in your life? Which is, I think, is brilliant because it makes you do what the person wants. It doesn't say, can you repeat it, sorry? How can we be most helpful in your life? So not this is our suite of services. It's what do you need and how can we help you with it? And then that leads to unique individual innovation rather than creating more models that pretty soon go out of date because people don't want models, they want something that works for them.
Interesting. So maybe just to bridge that a little bit, isn't that what we did in the past when we built institutions? In some ways, people didn't want people.
If you ask people what they want, so I spend a lot of my time asking people what do you want? What would a good life be like for you? Nobody's ever described a service. Nobody's ever described a rota or a model. They've said stuff like, I want my own place. I want some friends. I want a job. Do you know what I mean? It's that people describe life, not services. So if we respond to people in that way, we'll create unique social innovations based around what works for that person. Yeah, great. That's as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to continue doing that until I retire.
Bob.
Yeah, and I guess we work on the same things, and what we learned a long time ago, and we learned it from people like John O'Brien and John McKnight and others, was if we're going to actually answer those questions that Tim has just asked, then as service providers we have to get our heads around a lot of the stuff that people are asking for, we can't provide. We can only facilitate it through the ordinary world. And we're not commissioned to do that. We're commissioned to provide something that's been specified by somebody else. What we've been doing, and it's against the grain, it's exactly what what Jim was saying earlier, what we've been doing for 30 or 40 years is actually trying to do it despite the bloody rules,
Thank you very much, Philip. And I'm looking for some others. No.
I would like to react on the question, how can we be most helpful in your life? Would it change something if we would make that question reciprocal and also ask what can you mean for my life? Would that change something in our thinking about social innovation?
Okay, great. I'm not sure we have all the answers here, and I wish good luck to Miguel, who will be writing this report, trying to make it come together, but I think there's options there. Anyone want to have any final remark around this before we go into what can EASPD do to actually put this in practice for you?
Just to say that I think that question you raised, it comes very close to what we discussed earlier about the changing the logics of care and what does it mean and what's needed to have different, maybe slightly different kind of outcomes with services we provide. So I think it's very much in line in concrete way what we already discussed a bit more philosophical layer. So I also believe that it's very simple things, however, and that's our experience, of course, when we support people, that indeed the good life, it comes from simple things for all of us, and it's the same for us and for people with disabilities, and it's not the rocket science, it's there and we know it, and it's other things what make it complicated, and I think it's important indeed, like you described, to try to make it as simple as possible together with people. And I think that simplicity also encourages people themselves to be along with it, along with the processes, because when we make it very, very structural and so on, then it becomes more and more difficult for people themselves to participate.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting paradigm that you two gentlemen are touching upon here, and what Eugene mentioned is that on the other hand, if you want to create something new, maybe you just cut through the processes and you just like create something new. This is how a lot of innovation happened. No one knows that it was useful before it turned out to be very useful. So it's difficult to describe a process where everyone should be involved and something like that. And the other thing is that this type of procedural approach to innovation often starts from the idea that there is a service. Now we just need to ask you what color the service kind of should be. It's not actually even replying to the needs of a person. So I'm not making the job of the writer of this definition any easier, am I? But it's a difficult topic.
Timo, a last comment from Timo, and then we move on.
Yes, thank you. To comment something from the floor, our slogan is uniquely ordinary everyday life. And if that happens, I think we as a service provider have succeeded. So simple things in life, as Kirsi mentioned, we are all the same. But yeah, that's something I wanted to add.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few reports in different countries right now. I think in the UK, a Parliament report was about gloriously ordinary lives. And that's what it's about. And maybe bringing together, attempting to conclude, and this is not easy, but if ultimately, maybe we don't need to talk about voice, choice, control, all that, ultimately asking people what they want and doing it, and then bringing the people together to make that happen, including the responsibilities of the state and so forth. And maybe we can make it even simpler than just, this is, okay, Fabrizio. And then we move on.
It's just one thing I want to say. I agree in what is written. I think that this is okay for everybody. I'm just afraid of one thing. All this will go deep into the country culture. Each country will reply to it with its culture. And we see how many times it changes from North Europe to South and so on. So that's the only thing, just to remember it. It will not go at the same speed all over Europe, at least. We are Europe under that point. Just, I don't want to be pessimistic, but.
Emanuela, and then I will move on. I'm sorry for that, Emanuela.
Just if we can somehow summarize or reshape this with the term agents of change, like people with disabilities themselves, like they're the agents of change of the social innovation here.
Thank you very much. Agree fully with that. It comes back actually to the conference we had in this spot 4 years ago, where I think the title of the conference report was From Care Worker to Enabler of Change. And it's Agents of Change, Enabler of Change, but that's the spirit of it, which is really interesting. Let's move on. We can discuss this for hours, I'm sure, but it's late, it's Friday. So let's go to the details and the practice. What can EASPD do to actually do this? We've discussed how localized it all is, but let's talk about the details. And of course, in the office we have plenty of ideas. But first and foremost, as a membership-led organization, you have the ideas. You know how we can help you. So let's start maybe with Kirsi. You know EASPD quite well, especially politically, on the work that we've been doing. What's the next steps for EASPD to help you, KVPS, innovate?
I think we have covered during these days quite well the United Nations perspective and also the European policy perspective. I think it's self-evident that EASPD has a key role in that. For us, for example, as a provider, it has always been very fundamental help from EASPD that we get the knowledge from EASPD what's happening in with UN, with the union. What kind of demands it is, what does it mean for us? But what I think also is it's important, and what you have been doing quite a lot lately also in Greece and in other places, also Hungary and so on, is the local and national perspective to political discussions. And I'm wondering, because of course I know our situation best, but it's politically, and I think it's not just now, but it's already a longer time that we are not moving closer to what we discussed just earlier. We are moving actually further from that, and I think my colleagues from Finland, they seem to agree with me. So I think it's we really need to think it through. What kind of solution is not the correct word, maybe, but alternative maybe we have here in this situation when the realities of the countries like ours, which is anyhow rich country and so on, it seems that we don't have resources on anything. When we look at watch the news, it seems that we are totally out of money and nothing is possible anymore in this country. And anyhow, we are coming from a country which like has been said, in the 50s after the war and so on, we have built welfare state and all the social innovations mentioned here. And now we are in a situation that everything is impossible. So what I think it's important is that we rethink things also in political level, at national level, a little bit new way. And we need to have input to the political system nationally. And at least in our case, as we are a small country, what comes from Europe and from international organizations have great meaning. And it's usually that there is this kind of muscles more when it comes there, and when it's to support from that kind of support. And indeed, it's important that being a member of EASPD and having the information, because of that, it's one step that we know what's happening as local members and so on. But I also think that there could be, I of course realize also the resources and so on from that way, but I think there could be some rethinking also, that how could EASPD support that kind of policy work at national level in different way, also in the context of driving change. Because anyhow, when we look at what has been mentioned quite often, for example, the transformation of care, which comes from the report of United Nations, it definitely needs very drastic new thinking and also in political terms nationally. So and I don't think it has even started. Nobody even knows about it. Nobody talks about it and so on. So I think this kind of input, awareness raising, these kind of things are something EASPD could do politically to move things forward in very practical way, like you were saying that now we need more practice. So I think that could be something which would create. We have been talking a lot about the frameworks and so on during these days. And this is indeed something which would help such a framework to take place, because it's really worrying what's happening in politically. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've been 10 years at EASPD, more or less, and if you would have told me 10 years ago that members wanted us to work at national level, I would have been surprised. But now you're not the first to say it. I think it's coming more and more. Of course, it needs to be done with tact, I think, because of the sensitivities and the differences too. Interesting. Okay. Politics. Any ideas? How can we help you? Franz?
I only want to add one point Kirsi made. I want to add something. It's not the case that no members did use EASPD on the national level. We had members who used it very well, and even legislations are now in place, like for social economy in Bulgaria and so on, which have the handwriting of EASPD. So I would also say what was already mentioned. What can EASPD do for you? What can you do for EASPD? It's the same, on the same line a bit, because if you use EASPD, for example, and organize conferences like KVPS did here, you can have a big use in your country of that, because you can involve national policies and so on, and to make the UN documents more visible and more heard. That can be an effect out of that.
Thank you, Franz. I will move on to the next step. I know, Bob, but we need to also discuss other issues, so thank you for that. We can maybe come back at the end if we have some time.
Thank you. Yeah, previously, Tom, we've discussed how decision makers arrive at decisions, and one of the things I just wanted to share very quickly was something we have discussed, which is, the evidence from academia on how intervention actually happens is that it happens when people have a normative or an emotional understanding, not just an intellectual one or an academic one from a written document. And I think one of the things we can do with EASPD is we can create the environment for real decision makers to actually go and study the consequences of the decisions they're about to make. End of story.
You're lucky. It's a very good point. Fully agree with that. I think there's several ways in which we can organize that. Let's move on then to knowledge, research, peer learning, etc. Tuija, how can we help you?
Thank you for the question. It's rather difficult to give an innovative answer to that question after the 2 days when we have concentrated on this subject on innovation. But I would say, in short, the answer is keep up the good work, because I find the activities that EASPD does quite useful for our organization. But to be more precise, I would say that we would benefit from activities which promote interaction and knowledge. And in interaction, I think this type of conference that we are attending at the moment and experiencing it, I think this is very well. It's a very old-fashioned way of interacting, but at the same time, I think it's very beneficial because in happenings like this, you get to know people, and more importantly, I think I had once a very wise boss who said to me that go to a conference and give a presentation, and you get the people that you want to get in touch with, they come to you. And I think that was a very wise piece of advice. So that is very, very helpful, and I thank Kirsi and her team for being responsible for the conference at the moment here in Finland. We are a member, but our participation in the organizing this has been very small. So thank you. Another thing is, of course, joint projects which we can create. And there is a common subject that we gather around, and then we try to move forward in that. And the third thing, which is very important, is that if EASPD could promote and also do is research. And I was particularly, I think, research which is dealing or doing comparisons between countries, between different groups, because by getting that knowledge and information, I think we can learn and then promote our own steps forward towards innovations. I think when I read the pillars in the EASPD's strategy, they answered to these ideas very well. So I think we know what we have to do, or what EASPD can do. It's only a matter of implementation. Well, that's easily said than done, but anyway, I was happy to find the answers already there. Having said all this, I think we have to bear in mind the human factor, and that has been referred to many times during this conference. We can rather easily spread and do technical innovations, but the human factor, which is related to the abilities of human beings and the atmosphere that we are surrounded by the innovations, that is something which can't be copied. But if you or we can create the way to copy that, I think that would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you very much for copying the human support, continuing the good work. Maybe we can go home. Already know we have a lot more work to do. One idea that we wanted that the knowledge and innovation team, who most of you are in this room, I think, want to do is to find a way to sort of collect your practices, your initiatives, and help you sort of share them. So, for example, if you are, let's say, Valeria wants to know what's happening in the field of employment in 25 different countries, especially around social economy, employment, for example, then on the Knowledge Hub of EASPD, we'll be able to find all these initiatives that take place that our members do across Europe in a very easy to do, in an easy way, which we don't have to date in that way. That's great, potentially quite useful, hopefully, maybe not. If it's not, tell us. One danger there also is we will start to get into the territory of what is a good practice and what is not a good practice. And that's challenging, very challenging for the team. Does anyone have any thoughts around this? I'd like to run around. Thank you, Anna. Genevieve.
Thank you, Tom. I've been jotting some notes down, but this one actually speaks to me a lot, which is that I think that's an excellent suggestion to have a knowledge hub. We all are wanting to be here to network and connect with each other, to learn from each other. But I think if we're talking about innovation, EASPD should be a bit careful about what you're putting your stamp on, that this is innovative because we've put it in our hub. And that's beholden on all of us to work together to kind of assess within our local context what needs to happen next. It ties in some of those ideas that have come up so well here, not just this session, but in others, about are we truly listening to the people people who are accepting services. Something that you said, Tom, about maybe it is so simple is just to ask people what they want. I would challenge that, though, and say sometimes it's not that simple, because especially if people haven't seen what are all the opportunities, you can ask me what I want, but if I've never traveled outside of a little bubble, how would I even know how to respond to that? And then you could very easily say, okay, we'll do that, because it's easy, which then gets to the thing that Jim said. Are we being lazy? Sometimes. I wouldn't say any of us really are being lazy, but I do think for EASPD, I would love for you to push us, to keep challenging us, because sometimes we pat ourselves on the back too quickly about what's innovative or good practice, and maybe we don't even know outside of our bubble. And so one thing maybe I'll try to end on, I have many more things on my list, but just to give other space, that I work for Keystone Human Services International. You've heard from a couple of our colleagues here at this session, and one thing I hear over and over is that, well, EASPD supports members from many different countries, and there's all different sorts of resources and context. And so, you know, we have to be careful, each of us, about what we say, what's innovative, because something innovative here might not be there, and vice versa. But we work in the United States, Moldova, and India. It's a long story for over a beer to tell you why. But in any case, there are universals for us that are very clear about all of those contexts. And it's not, you know, oh, we can do this good practice here, but it's, you know, in Moldova, we have to do it different. Ludmila's led on exactly that very issue. Our team in India is the same, and we all come back to the core. So I think EASPD can really push us in recognizing we're part of a global movement toward inclusion, and that engaging people with disabilities in leadership roles in this conversation is another good next step.
Thank you, Genevieve. Extremely useful input here. Challenging, I think, for our team in many ways, but that's what we're here for. Jim?
I'm really pleased, Genevieve, that you've introduced that comment about push, because I was wanting to say something about that for a couple of minutes. There's a big issue here for us in EASPD about the knowledge and what we do with the knowledge. And perhaps, you know, we're not a regulator, we're not a standard setter, but do we have a responsibility in EASPD to push our members towards a more thorough implementation of the UNCRPD, and to working with the people that use our services to build them in a different way? I mean, I think that's important as a principle, and not so easy to put into effect, even when we're very conscious. I think we are quite conscious of the different barriers that exist in our various states where we have members. But if we don't do it, there's another reason why we should be doing it. You know, we work in alliance very often with disabled people and with disabled people's organizations, but we do hear voices from disabled people's organizations, which have been quite destructive of service providers in the past, but which are based on their experiences. You know, and sometimes that stopped us having a voice in certain European Union settings, for instance, because some disabled people will say that we as service providers are the problem. We're not the solution, we're the problem. And I think that's increasingly an issue that we need to have the ability to combat, and to combat with demonstrations of action on our part. But it's perhaps a little bit controversial, and perhaps it's something people could reflect on or reply to or pick up.
I'm sure there will be many beers drunk tonight talking about all these topics. Genevieve in the back, and then I will...
Sorry, just a follow up to that, to respond to Jim. I would say that I don't know that anyone would want also for the push to be like a policing. I don't know that having EASPD be a police on how any of us do our work would be that helpful, but I would maybe reframe it to continuing to challenge us. And I think that's what the theme of this conference is about, challenging us to be better. I welcome that.
Yeah, maybe it's not EASPD challenging you to be better, it's yourselves challenging each other to be better. And as peers, there's less judgment because you know and understand the difficulties in doing that. And so that's really something that we can look into. Okay, let's move on to another in our view, important tool, the project development tool of the EASPD team. We have the biggest, I think, to my knowledge, project development team in Brussels. We have a lot of capacity. We do a great job. How can we do it better, Timo?
Yes, thanks. First of all, I really agree with the 3 pillars. I think that's a great basis for any service provider. So I really enjoy that. But I've been reading the strategy of EASPD. I'm now referring to chapter 2. Of course, every one of you knows it by heart. But I'm also bringing this into really practical level. What can EASPD do for us service providers all over Europe and all over the world? I think there's a growing need of practical knowledge about the best digital tools to use in everyday life to work so that our clients are in their best practices and so on. So for the best benefits of our clients. So that could be one thing. And of course, we can't rule out artificial intelligence. It's in everybody's mind at the moment. Quite many of us are using different AI solutions, but then we have to think about the security things. What are we feeding into AI systems, because they are not secure at the moment, at least not all of them. So I think that's one thing that the EASPD could maybe have a say on, or something like that. I think it needs just some decency and moral. And also, in the strategies mentioned, focus on community development by building up cooperation with a wide range of mainstream stakeholders. Quite a long thing to say, but I think this is really important, because I think we need practical examples all over Europe, how to do it in our own community, how to think out of the box, if I'm using this old saying, but find new companionships with different authorities, different whatever there are out there. And also, I'd like to EASPD to enhance our ways to be co-innovative with our clients, so be co-creating.
Thank you very much, Timo, for that. So you talked about PCT, and he's left, Evetian. I was going to come to Evetian, but I can't see him anymore. Okay. AI is also a topic that's very high up on the agenda. Normally, we should be doing a study looking into how AI can help support services improve what they do, and also looking into some of the challenges. So that's really on our agenda, and I think we're looking into different projects in that field too. And when it's about new relationships, I think there's a lot that can be done there too, in particular with Erasmus+. I'm not an expert, so I'm trying to find Ivana. Anyway, but a big part of Erasmus+ is actually cross-sectoral cooperation and training each other, developing training material for cross-sectoral cooperation, and that's what we're looking at a lot, for example, right now in the housing field and many others. So there's lots of opportunities out there. Any ideas for what we can do better? Are we missing out on anything? Are there specific topics that we should look into? Hans?
I want to raise one issue that I think is worth thinking about. If we look at our societies, we can see that so many people have been immigrating in our societies, so our societies have changed, and this also means that the client structure has changed. And those people, they have come from cultures that have different ways of coping with individual problems. So to a certain extent, for them, the principle of person-centered support is something very Eurocentric, because they are used to cope individual problems in the system of an extended family. So this brings us back to, let's say, where societies of parents have started from. So the question is, how do societies in some very diverse parts of Europe, how do they cope with individual problems? And I mean, so person-centeredness should be added, should not be, of course, it's very important, and we should not give this individualized principles away, but it should be added with some kind of network-oriented support, network-centered, family-centered support. So because the client structure has changed and the concepts have not. And so this could be something worth looking at. So
thank you, Hans. Agree. I mean, I think there's a few projects, applications actually covering that issue. So for example, maybe someone from the project team can talk about it. We developed a project that hasn't been approved yet, but I don't think so, which is on basically helping you to better deal with the diversity within your staff and diversities in general, gender-related issues, sexuality issues, and so forth. And that's something that we need to be better at, but also, of course, not just the staff, but the service users. I think Habi, for example, in Brussels, I think they have 60 nationalities or something like that they have to support, and how to do that is not straightforward. Family, important issue. I think even within Europe, you have different relationship with the role of family. If you look, for example, in Mediterranean countries, the relationship with family and family support and thing is very different to what it is here in Finland, for example. So I'm not sure it's only, even within Europe, I think that you have different relationships to the role of the family, and it's definitely something that we want to look into. And then last, we have also a project that we applied for, and I think it was approved recently, which is looking into community inclusion. Not looking at the housing, not looking at the support, but actually what's around that. And that includes family, friends, the local football club, I don't know, so forth. So we're looking into all of these ideas, but of course, these ideas don't come from us, they come from you. So don't hesitate to always come back to the EASPD Secretariat to tell them, this is a great project idea, and so forth. And there's still the project corner open outside. So if you have ideas, please come to us, because we really do, take all this into account. Afterwards, we need to make choices, but hopefully we're responding to your needs. Great. Pep.
About what can we do to improve the impact of some of the innovations that come from projects. We don't involve local, regional, national authorities in almost all the projects we are doing things that to achieve funds, we need to be innovative, scalable, and impact. But at the end, the impact, what is the impact if we don't involve the ones who can generalize the impact of the result of a project? I think we have to think more in how to involve from the beginning to the end, or at least at the end of the projects, the authorities that can implement in legislation and funding streams what is considered new and unique projects at the moment. We have ended the project, and we have tools to help the public administrations and governments, but who will use that? What is the commitment? We didn't get that. We have to imagine new ways to involve who can really change the thing after the innovation is tested.
Very good point. Fully agree. I think there are 2 points at the back. One here, and then Philip afterwards.
Yeah. To complete on this point, I think that you could maybe connect more. I don't know what kind of connection you have with the actors of social innovation, but obviously that's a point we have discussed a lot on how to engage authorities, because they are, for some parts, the one in charge of the spreading, in a way. And I think, this kind of connection could maybe bring some tools already existing, and could maybe be adapted to the context of service providers if needed. I'm not sure about that. But I think maybe in the social innovation, there was a confusion between the goal and the method. And I think we talked yesterday about the values, for instance, and values are vision and futures are the goals, and social innovation is just a way to go through it. And you asked about how can we define a good practice and not a good practice. And actually everything is just connected to the goal. So it's not about what you do, but what it is leading you to change. So I was thinking that maybe we could separate the reflection into the vision. So we talked about the futures yesterday and also today. So maybe just work on the vision. What is the society we would love to have? And I think it could engage emotionally also our leaders, because we can make them dream of something that is brilliant. And this is, I think, like inclusive society, even if we have to discuss about what it is and describe it. So a second step would be to define the role and the new roles of service providers in this vision. So that would give us a goal. So we have a dream, then we have goals. Social innovation is a way to go to that goal. So we can work together, have social design and etc. to implement the goals we have. And then management, a change of management of change would be a way to change things, because we know that even if we have a goal and we know what we should do, it's difficult to make people change. So, but we also have theory of change that could help us manage this in our, so I think we can pick up so many things interesting already existing in other fields, and maybe just stop thinking just in our bubble, as you said.
Let me take your email address afterwards to write the report. Let's finish a last comment from Philip, and then some, maybe if you want to, concluding remarks, and then we conclude. Philip.
Well, maybe just a tip on what you could do is, maybe you already do it, but maybe the team of EASPD could go more and visit the members where they are and talk not only with the people who come to the conferences, but the people on the floor, and to learn to know what lives there and to create connection in this way also.
Yeah, we've been discussing it a lot amongst the managers, and it's a big part of our discussions. And especially, well, thank you for the welcoming us in your services in Belgium. It's not far, so we can come and see see what you do in Belgium. Great. Okay, let's conclude. Kirsi?
Yeah, I would like to say something because I think it was very relevant discussion regarding diversity, and it's really fundamental, I think, at the time when we reflect how we transform the services and what kind of transformation is needed and how it's supported, and also it comes close to the new logic of care. What we have been discussing is the diversity. Definitely, and I think it needs to be reshaped, at least in our context, the way official and unofficial support is it's organized, let's say, because indeed I know the reality is very different in different parts of Europe, but they are not seen as the solutions to the same issue, let's say. They are seen as in a very different way, whereas they should be seen in much more comprehensive way as a providing care for people, and I think that's the one, and I think that's addressed in a very good way also in UN report, that it's seen as a very much the key for the future for transformation of services. And I think indeed what's been said by Pep and Hans and so on, it's very relevant also to take into account the diversity, but to find out ways, and I think we as a sector, we should be very active in trying to find ways how we collaborate much more I would say it's communities, because in communities, families are there, people themselves are there, and the people who provide, let's say, unofficial care are in communities, in community actors, let's say. So that's, I think, the big possibility and challenge for us as a sector is to reach out to the communities.
Thank you, Kirsi. Tuija?
It's very easy to continue from this, because what I had in mind, I wanted to thank you for the comment which was related to the communities, and I think it reminds me of the discussion we had previously in the session that Roope was with, where you said something about that we should find something in between, not the nuclear family and not only the nuclear family or the society, but we should find something in between to take the responsibilities and so on, if I understood you correctly. So I think I support very warmly the comment, and I hope that we find common activities around that in the future.
Looking forward to it. Timo?
Thank you so much for the comments. I think visiting each other also on the service provider levels is vital, so we can bench learn. And I think it's really important. So EASPD, welcome to us also to meet the people who are working with us. And especially, I think the most important thing, to meet the clients, because they are the reason why we are here. So let's all meet them. I do sometimes work shifts in our units just to learn how it is working there and to meet our clients, and it's really rewarding. Thank you.
I look forward to coming and doing a work shift in Finnish, obviously.
Yeah, it's quite easy to learn, so yeah.
Moi.
Just check it. Yeah.
AI will help.
Yeah.
Great. And then Roope, if you can finish maybe in max 1 minute, because we have to move on.
I just wanted to touch upon the EASPD's role. And I was wondering that, could you lead a revolution? Because it seems that, the need of care and support is becoming the central part of our society. It's a similar thing that like climate change and digitalization is. It changes the whole society. And that means that the kind of skills, capabilities, practices, innovations you have are becoming central to the society. So could you be the agent that makes these alliances, with, let's say, labor unions or inclusive housing movements, or the kind of whoever is the representative of the massive mental health epidemic of the youth and so forth, and say that, hey, we have these skills, let's play together. Politically, we can have more power and align in that way, because it seems that there is massive kind of amounts of resources and skills and stuff that you have that the whole society needs. So, but someone needs to build these alliances and say, hey, we are going to the same direction, are we?
And that's what we hope to achieve. Thank you very much, everyone, for this quite dynamic session. Not bad, I think, for a Friday afternoon. Better than a policy panel. So great, thanks. I won't do concluding remarks because I think Kirsi and Jim will be doing that for us. Just next steps around this, we will take note of everything today, try and put forward a document, not too long, but that makes sense, that we will propose to you, and then, of course, take into account your feedback afterwards. And we hope to get it done by February if we can. So that's it. If you have any ideas before providing feedback to the document, please get back to us, but really as soon as possible. Petra, and thank you also to the excellent panelists.
Thank you, Tom. I think that was one of the most excellent final panels that we have had. Very exciting, with a lot of interaction with all of us. I just wanted to mention that the UN report that was mentioned many times during the days, I think that many people know that, but if you don't, it's a special rapporteur's, Gerard Quinn's UN report. It's called Transformation of Services, and I'm sure that EASPD can share it to all of the participants, the link online, because it's really good report, and it says also that we need new language, we need new words, because that builds our society. And I think that during the 2 days we have really had a chance to create also new ways of speaking of our services and the futures that we are creating. So I read it. It's an excellent report. Before the concluding remarks and celebration of these 2 days, we have one smaller celebration, but important. We had this scavenger hunt, and we have 3 winners. And the questions were quite difficult. For example, how often has Finland won Eurovision? Only once. It's a big deal in Finland, and only once. This year we were second, although we think that we should have won. Sweden won, by the way. So we have 3 winners here, and first, and please forgive me if I'm not able to pronounce your names correctly. It's Rita Aslani. Are you in the house? Sorry, and if you are not, unfortunately, we are going to pick another one, because we want people to be here until the end. Oh, sorry. So the next winner would be Dionysius Soras.
No. Oh, it's going to take a long time, this session. I'm sorry. Sorry, friends.
It's a bit sad also. Lisa Dessauer. Oh, wow, great.
Yes, and here are 2 more winners.
Thank you for participating.
Yes, here we have 2 more.
Thank you.
The missing ones.
The Winter Ann. Well, I know that she's here.
Yes.
There
she is.
And then Evangelia Cristina Andreadi. Here? No? It will take...
She's here.
She's here. Oh, congratulations.
Let's move anyhow.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now I will hand the microphone.
I have mic here. Yes.
Okay. Here is your prize. Here is your prize.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Good. Congratulations to the winners. So very briefly, some final remarks of our days together. First, of course, I want to say that it's been really a pleasure to have you here in Helsinki. Thank you for coming. I think it has been very interesting days. There has been really a lot of knowledge and creativity, experience and energy, I think, also on the stage and as well as in the audience. And I really thank you that I think you have been very engaged and open to share and learn. And I think it was also very visible in our last panel that everybody was still very much engaged. So thank you for that. Thank you for doing that. And I think that's really the way forward. And I think like if we want to be the revolution, like Roope said, I think it needs that kind of energy quite a bit. Anyhow, thanks for that. And I think for me, for myself, it has been very inspiring days. I was very confident about our conference content before it started, and I'm really very happy how it went. And I think I have far better understanding of what is needed to make social innovations real in everyday life and meaningful for people than I had before. And I think that's the idea of the conference, that we know something more than before, and of course also to get to know each other better and so on. I have maybe four short points, learning points I would like to share with you very briefly, don't worry. And I have to start again, like many times during these days, from the values. And I think it became very self-evident during these days that innovations, I think all of the speakers basically started that the innovations start from the values. And for me, it was very important message that basically human values are common for all. I think it's also a very comforting, I think, idea that we don't have to kind of compete with each other, that who is putting the values in most beautiful way and so on, because the values are there and they are the core of social sector organizations, and we all share a lot because of that. And we have certain role in societies, and we are committed to human rights and values which are generated from human rights, and that's why we share a lot. And by heart, we respect humanity and promote equality in society. And I think that creates the kind of basis. It's very, very good to create much more, create these innovations. And also in a very practical way, for example, it's something I think it's very important for people who are thinking what they want to do in their lives. I think when we put that in the core, it comes more and more tempting for youngsters to start to work in our sector. And related to this, the second issue I will raise is the purpose. I'm quite involved in Association for Social Enterprises, and from this point of view, it's very clear that no organization nowadays is saying that their purpose is to make profit for the stakeholders. It doesn't exist anymore, even in for-profit sector. And all these organizations are trying to find a purpose, and they are kind of thinking and rethinking that what's the purpose of our organization? Why do we exist in society? And they are having doing huge amount of work around that. And I think for us, this is so easy, let's say, because in social sector, the purpose is so clear. We have such a clear place in society, and so it becomes very naturally from there. And I think it's great advantage, and it's the essence why we exist. And I think therefore this very very clear idea of purpose is saying that social sector organizations are value-driven by nature. And so this gives us all, I think, very good starting point for all the innovations we have been discussing during these days. During these days, I think we have realized that the systemic approach is very much needed. We started from that yesterday, that we said that during these days we want to see what kind of structures and systemic thinking there has to be behind social innovations. And I think very similar issues regarding this was highlighted in many presentations. I think in very, very clear way, Greg Willems highlighted them this morning. I really enjoyed that when he was describing what has to be there when we are talking about creating cultures which enable innovations in our organization. I think it was very practical message that we have to have passion in our organization, and I think these values and purpose help in that, to have that passion for our work. Then we have to have mission. It's also done when we have the purpose, so it's also very clear. And then there has to be this kind of decision in which we want to be excellent, and we have to be ambitious about it. And I think we were discussing quite a bit about this ambition in the last panel also, that we also have to kind of push that kind of ambition for each other. And I think it's not so much pushing, but supporting each other to be ambitious in our work. All this needs quite a lot from leadership. Leadership is there to facilitate the culture and structures and values. And I think the words which came up when we think about the leadership during these days are words like empathy and curiosity and being brave, for example. And I think all these words are quite different when we compare them to a little bit more old-fashioned style of leadership, let's say, or management. So I think it needs to be rethink. The leadership and organizations need to be a little bit rethought because of these new kind of demands for leadership also. In this, I also want to highlight, I think it was striking when Minna Koskelo was saying yesterday that almost 30% of people, when they are asked what kind of things bring them hope, they can't think anything. Nothing comes to their mind, and I think it's crazy. But so I think that one of the most important, it's very important, I think, for us to be such leaders that we create hope in societies, in our organizations, and in the communities we are working. And then the last point, which we already knew in the beginning that it's fundamental, but I think it has been highlighted during these days a great deal, is to work together, listen to each other, listen to people, and especially people with disabilities and their families. And I would like to stress out that we have to challenge ourselves really to find out new ways to do this, because I think it's very easy thing to say that we listen and we are taking people along and so on, but we really have to be ambitious in this and challenge ourselves in it, and also I think support each other again. So these were the points I would like to make. Jim will make some more in short while, but last thing, I really want to thank EASPD staff, especially Miguel, Dimitri, Tom, and Rachel, who have put this conference together with us. It has been really great pleasure to work with you, and the collaboration has been very easy, and I think it has been very important conference for us, and I think for the sector in Finland. So thank you for your professionalism and enthusiasm to do this together, and of course also my own team.
That, I think, was really very powerful conclusions drawn by our colleague Kirsi. I jotted down some of the key words that she mentioned, all of them so relevant to the debates over 2 days, but very neatly summarized the debates over the 2 days. So values, purpose, mission, ambition, hope, challenge. I think there were one or two more there as well. So thank you. I think that's a beautiful way to tie things together. I will seek to add to that. I don't know I will quite reach Kirsi's heights, but I will try. We've had 2 intense days of activity, of sharing and collaboration. And we've confirmed that we do have a good basis for action moving forward. We have a platform through the UNCRPD, and more particularly, the subsequent reports and documents that support the convention. They provide us with a strong platform for thinking about what the nature of our services should be like in the coming months and years. And it is a strong reminder to us that we're making progress in many of our organizations, but we're not there yet. We won't be there for a while. But still, let's stay with the positives. Very positively, the United Nations now sees us as part of that progress, service providers, and that we are part of the solution. They have made recommendations to us through various initiatives and through their representative who spoke to us 2 days ago. We should believe and trust in the human rights-based approach to how we respond to the needs of people with disabilities. Second, we should take forward and act upon those values, no matter how hard and challenging they are to us, and the standards that they require us to set in our services. And thirdly, and we must hold on to this, we must be positive, it's not about being perfect, but it's about making progress. And there are some very good idioms around that, aren't there, about if you worry too much, you never do anything in life. So we have to move ahead. We have to move ahead and try. There is a gap between principles and reality. During the 2 days, we've made a case for clarifying what social innovation is. And it's very important that our members on the ground grasp that. And it's also very important for those services that are funded by government agencies or authorities. Clarity brings purpose and direction. This is not to remove the flexibility that must be intrinsic to effective social innovation. But what we must no longer have or tolerate are authorities or service providers painting something as innovative when it patently is not. Because that serves no value and it is a disservice to the people that we're there to support and empower. So, in the coming months in EASPD, we'll be looking through and developing our own declaration on social innovation. We have all of the elements in the document now there, I think, from our debates over the last 2 days, and your input and your influence will be brought to bear in that draft. We'll define what innovation in the field of support for people with disabilities means. We'll be talking about the values and leadership that we need to show and the positive approach to risk-taking that we must embrace, and also we must learn from our mistakes. We've heard about the need for a culture of creativity amongst our staff, for us to listen to and promote ideas from those who use our services, as well as the staff who have a lot of knowledge and insights that we must tap much more effectively in the future. Some of the best knowledge comes from our support workers, our personal assistants, the people that work day in, day out with people with disabilities. And Timo said in the conclusions how powerful it was for him to take shifts in his service, to see what it really feels like and is like for the people that you support. We can make some mistakes, but we must just learn from them. We must also take forward a couple of points. We must grasp technology. Again, we've had very fruitful discussions about that. Some fears, but many challenges and many opportunities. We must seize those opportunities to benefit our services and the people that we support. Technology should never be about itself. It's a means to an end. It's a means to empowerment. It's a means to providing solutions. There's also been talk about legal frameworks, whether they're barriers or whether they're enablers. All too often they're barriers. We heard from Pep Sole about how reforms to legal capacity can make a huge difference in the development of supported decision-making. People with disabilities should be seen and regarded under the law as citizens and have equal rights with everybody else. The funding of support services is also crucial. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it's very important for many of our organisations. We need person-centred funding models. We've heard during these 2 days about value-based payment systems, and we've talked about personal budgets here and in other settings that EASPD provides for its members. These are all going in the right direction. We need funding systems that focus on partnership, on collaborative approaches, not top-down impositions of what people think are the best ways to provide services. So there needs to be dialogue between authorities and ourselves as service providers. It is important to challenge bad legal frameworks. We are, after all, more than just providers. I don't think many of us in this room see our jobs as merely jobs. It's always been about more. It's always been about making a difference. It's all about changing society and community for many of us. And we also must remember that many of us are relatively local organizations, whether we're big or small. And that does give us insights that authorities can never have, much so that some may strive to achieve that themselves. And we can, and often should, play a role in advocating for the people that we support. We have a responsibility to that end. So, all of what I said might be considered important, but we need more than just words. You need more than just words. Blah, blah, as Tom said earlier. This is why EASPD's Declaration on Social Innovation will also detail how EASPD can help you as organisations to innovate on the ground through our policy work, through our projects, through our peer learning and other training, through research, and of course, through conferences like this. The Declaration will be looking into all of this. So if you have ideas, please get in touch with the Secretariat and channel your thoughts and ideas through to them. So, to finally conclude, almost, we must believe in the UNCRPD and its principles. We must not equivocate about that. Some of them are uncomfortable, but they have to be considered and taken seriously. We must take concrete actions to help us and our members move towards the UNCRPD. We must endlessly seek to promote voice, choice, and control for persons with disabilities, and in their lives and in the support they use. So that's the hard messages concluded today. I would sincerely wish to thank KVPS and their team. So that's Kirsi, Katri, Mesa, and last but not least, Kirsi and Katri. Did I say Katri and Kirsi? I'm getting confused now. I'm getting confused. So, but thank you sincerely. Petra and Petra. I can't say 4 words simply at the end of the day. So my apologies for names who I know well. But it is always good to work with KVPS. We can always rely on their professionalism and their ability to put on a very effective conference in partnership with our EASPD team. So thank you sincerely, and we're delighted to be again in the wonderful city of Helsinki. I would, of course, like to thank the EASPD team, Tom, Miguel, particularly Miguel and Dimi, who are doing a lot of the legwork and the groundwork and speaking in 15 languages. And of course, we have some gifts for each of those people that I've sought to name. Thank you very much. And Tim, our interim chief executive, will be doing the honours.
Looks like a hamburger.
Okay, thank you sincerely, colleagues and friends. I consider them all friends, so thank you very much. 2 final points. The first is, please, if you should have the energy to come to our General Assembly tomorrow morning. It's not as dull as it sounds. There will be interesting things to report and discuss with you. We need your guidance and support. You are very often the experts in what we should be doing. There are also 1 or 2 freebies to be given out, very important freebies that I think you will find very, very, very touching to receive. And of course, there's the serious business of looking at the funding of EASPD and holding us accountable to you as our members. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is that the frame for this conference is fading. Not quite yet, but beginning to fade. Well, we have member forums this evening too, so this afternoon. So please remember those. They're very important for guiding our work. So but the frame for the conference is fading. But this conference is fading. But it's a little bit like the Olympics. The frame between this conference and our next conference never goes out. We continue to work, we continue to take forward the initiatives and ideas that you've shared with us. And our next conference will be in the spring in Slovakia. And I'm very pleased to welcome Elena from Tenenet to say a few words about that.
It's a pleasure and also honor for us. We are NGO Tenenet from Slovakia, and it's a pleasure and honor for us to invite you for next annual EASPD conference in May. The term is 19th till 22 May of 2024 in Bratislava, in the heart of Europe. So you are sincerely invite to come and see our nice Slovakia. And also the topic of conference will be to provide a complex and very fruitful standards and of support needs in quality of MHPSS. Together interlinked with rights of people with disabilities. So these will be the highlights of conference, and it will be very practical connection in between 3 key documents: UNCRPD, then European Commission communication paper on approach and different approaches of mental health. And the third document is interagency document of WHO, so World Health Organization, of key elements of MHPSS, so mental health, psychosocial support. And what all of these documents, legislative papers, and practical implications should be adopted in the everyday living of people with disabilities. Thanks.
So we very much look forward to coming to Slovakia. We've not had a major conference in Slovakia before, so I'm sure it will be very interesting to spend time in that beautiful capital city. Last of all, I would like us all to join in thanking all the presenters, speakers, everybody who made a contribution in our conference over the last 2 days, and yourselves as delegates. Thank you very much. Oh, And last but not least, Kirsi has pointed out we should thank our translators who've worked very discreetly in the distance, but very hard work translating the many words yesterday and today. Thank you. Thank you.